the Grey Hat Beard podcast. Hello and welcome to show 11 of Grey Hat Beard, the Modern Workplace podcast, where we talk about all things around modern workplace and Microsoft 365. My name's Kevin McDonald. I'm the Grey of Grey Hat Beard. I'm a solutions architect at CPS.
I'm Al Erdley. I'm the Hat of Grey Hat Beard, and I'm also a solution architect at CPS.
And we have a special guest. Our regular beard is not here, so very conveniently, we have Stephan Bisser, who also has a beard, which I've only just occurred to me as I'm talking now, that we have the right stand-in. So, Stephan, do you want to, as our guest beard, want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Stephan. I'm from Austria. I'm actually a technical lead at a company called Solvion. And besides that, I'm a MVP for AI, as it's called. But I'm dealing more or less around with the conversational AI part in Azure and those kind of things. Happy to be here.
And I was wondering about this because you want the MVP for AI, but do you look at the machine learning and other things as well, or really just focus on that conversational side?
Yeah, for now I just focus on the conversational AI side, but of course I tend to look onto the machine learning and deep learning stuff they build, because that's a really sophisticated platform. You get to have a whole lot of time to actually dig deep into that. But more or less, I'm focusing on what's called lightweight AI, if you will.
Yeah. I think it was interesting. We were talking on, there was the collab talk yesterday, and one of the questions was, what do you see as the themes coming out of the Microsoft 365 virtual marathon that's been up recently and build? For me, one of the big ones is that kind of spectrum of making it easy to travel from the low code and easy to use things to the pro dev that we've seen a lot of and talked about in the Power Platform. I think the bot framework's getting a lot of that, and the conversational AI as well.
I think, it's definitely making it much easier to access.
Yeah, so I think
easier design surfaces.
Absolutely.
I'm sure we will come onto this in a whole lot more detail as well.
Thank you very much for keeping me back on track there. It's usually meant to be me doing that, so I'm waffling off. I do love bots. So what we're going to do, we're going to talk, for those who haven't listened to the show, we tend in the first part of the show to talk about the news and what's been happening. And then the second half, we go on to our specialist subject. And this week, it's Here Come the Robots. And we're going to be talking about bots. And Stephan's very nicely corrected me and talk about conversational AI. So it's not just about bots. There's a bit more to it, but we'll talk about that in the second half. We'll kick off with the news in the first half. And Al, what news have you got for us?
So I've been massively busy, so not a massive amount this week. I think one of the things that I've been keeping an eye on is the evolution of the Power Platform admin portal, as they consolidate multiple different portals into one place. And there was an announcement around the portals, Power Platform portals coming in, which is good, coming into the environment view. So that's just one more building block that's coming in to add to what is already an ever-growing capability. Makes it much easier for managing the whole of the Power Platform rather than just thinking about those underlying workloads. It's just an evolution that they're doing, which is working really well at the moment.
Has much changed with the Power Portals recently? I kind of, after the big bang and excitement of it feels like it's gone a little quiet.
It has gone a little quiet. There's not much that's been changing in there. I guess because it was already a pretty robust platform, having come pretty much directly from Dynamics, it already had a lot of capabilities. I think, as
robust
with
is one word for it.
Yeah, well, yes, proven, shall we say? Yeah, I think. Yeah, one of the things that I think, the focus of where Microsoft are developing things, it tends to move around, doesn't it? So I'm sure their focus will go back onto portals sooner or later when they've got everything else up to a point where they're comfortable and happy with it. And I think, that it's certainly one of the areas that we're looking at a bit more in terms of how we can use it, both internally to give a different interface, and also obviously externally with B2C, so working with consumers or other businesses. So nice to see that coming in. Another item that caught my eye was, I guess, the end of the month routine for Teams. Here's an announcement that says everything that's being updated in May. It seemed to cover most of the build stuff. It's quite hard to pick out what was actually being released. but looking at the roadmap going forward, there's some quite interesting things coming through. So we've got some pinned posts coming soon. Contextual search will be an interesting one that will come in.
Finally, some better search in Teams would be
very
useful.
They've been quite quiet about that, but that hopefully that will deliver what most people are asking for, which is I want to be able to find, files and chats, but within the context of a channel or a team.
But
that's really
that's
useful.
not yet the integration of Microsoft Search into Teams, is it?
No,
not so much about that, sadly.
Not so far as I can see. It is looking for files that are in channels. So it is files, chats are the results that it will be looking for. But even that will add a level of capability that I think people have been lacking, because Microsoft Search is fantastic, brings everything up. Teams is kind of playing second fiddle to that at the moment. And then the last one that I'm really looking forward to and have been waiting for ages and ages, since Ignite last year actually, is the new tasks experience in Teams. So we're on the TAP tenant, the TAP program, so I can see it's in the TAP program at the moment, and it's due to be pushed out in June, and I think that really will revolutionize the way people work with tasks, because it basically will bring in the to-do capabilities but into the Teams interface, which I think will be a game changer for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think that there's been a bit of confusion about this. So task within Teams, is that just to do embedded within Teams, or
it? Well, it is, in terms of it's using the same data under the hood. So it's using the same smart lists that To-Do uses. It's showing you your flagged emails. It's showing you Planner, but it's got quite a different feel to it in terms of the layout of the tasks is quite different. It's nearer to what they've brought in with Project for the Web, a grid, which is quite nice. So it brings together a slightly different interface, slightly different name, but it is the same underlying data. So, and one of the nice things that it brings is, we've all had this where we've got planners, maybe multiple plans in one team. How do I see those? How do I group them by the team? It breaks them down like that. So it will show you the plans that are in each team that you're working in, so that you can actually navigate it more easily.
So here it's not just about you. It's also it will be the team level stuff as well.
It is bringing a combination of the planner application and To-Do together in Teams.
But Planner's still there as well.
Planner is still there.
And we'll also have Microsoft lists, which you could have tasks in as well.
Let's not go there. I don't know where those will end up. Ideally, so if I were to dream a utopian future for task management, we would see Microsoft lists coming into this. And we would also see Project for the Web tasks coming into this, because they're all scoped within Office 365 groups. So it should be easy enough to pull them into a single interface to see them all.
But the thing is, with lists, I guess it's not designed for tasks, right? So they're designing lists not for task management, but for other purposes. So I'm not quite sure if they actually will end up in task for Teams, right?
Yeah, and I think that's it would be great if they could be smart and they could say, if there is a field in there like owner or assigned to, then to say, right, it's actually a task list, and then bring those lists in. But that would be fantastic.
It's funny what you're saying there, and the reason I was chuckling was because I said the same to Al, that lists aren't really about tasks, and you vehemently disagreed. And the more I look at it, because one of the templates is task management within the list, so it's not just about tasks, absolutely. But if you want a task with a bit more metadata, effectively, then lists is the place to go.
I think more metadata, but also more sophisticated automation. Where you want to be able to say, actually, we've got a more complex process, and this is where lists and the rules look really good. But that they've got one, setting up agendas for meetings. You're assigning activities out to people. So hopefully they'll be really smart. But hey, we could maybe use some AI to identify, what's right and what needs to go in and what doesn't. Yeah, and the to-do API to bring it all together.
With that was the thing. It would be interesting to know that with the tasks in Teams, presumably that to do graph API that we mentioned in the build special last week would also integrate into that. And I know Gary was starting to look at that and found there was no documentation yet. So, but I think the fact that graph, I think very interesting that they've announced that graph API really ahead of any full integration of other things, but that seems to be the enabler for integrations like Planner and other things. And I think our colleague Sam Graber was talking about project management in Teams at the Microsoft 365 virtual marathon, and one of the questions was about that integration with Planner and Project for the Web into To-Do and other things. And to me, that API is what's going to enable it, but they haven't actually put the integrations in yet, which is good. It means that other people can do it first. So
the thing is, I played around with the To-Do API, but actually I was using the old-fashioned Outlook beta API. So you had to use the Outlook Task API, and that's a bit of a mess right there, because there is documentation, but it's really documented like in a mess, and you have to actually figure out your own routines to actually make those tasks work. And if they now release the To-Do API, and if they get the documentation out there, I'm guessing it's pretty no-brainer to actually use that API then.
Yeah, I think that's that. Hopefully that will all come together nicely, and because if it all joins up, the dream of being able to say Teams has everything that you need, all of the tasks,
Azure DevOps,
anywhere,
Jira, whatever, ServiceNow, etc.
All in one place, and you could, that would be brilliant.
Yeah.
And then governance kicks in, and how we're going to manage all that. But
shush. Don't mention governance.
Cool. And I know, Stephan, we're not ignoring you for the news, but that the news you're going to cover is mostly going to be about the conversational AI and things from builds, which we'll cover in the second half on there. Now, as we've known, Gary, I'm going to try and pick up some of the dev type news that's come up. But the first, that was all your news, wasn't it, Al?
It was, yes.
Thank you. The first bit of news, we had the Microsoft 365 virtual marathon, which was an absolutely epic event last week. I'm just going to turn the sound off on this one. And they had Jeff Teeper there doing the keynote, which was great on there. Really good to hear from him. There's some interesting bits and pieces that came from that. I think the one, let me try and jump to the right link that really caught my attention. And I don't know if this is new, I just haven't heard about it. It's a little bit hard, I found, at some of these events, because there's been so many new things coming out, to know what's actually new and what's just have missed in kind of the big things that have come through. But they talked about an admin center where you can go in with Teams and see the performance for your different regions. I'll try and flash up on the screen for anyone who's looking at the video. So you can see the connectivity to Microsoft 365 for your different locations around the world, and to be able to see what the workload is and see the different things, so whether it's Exchange Online being used most, whether it's Teams on there, and you can actually then try and move some of the workloads, especially you have the I forgot the name for it, it's sort of globally distributed. You can move some workloads to kind of be closer to the different regions. I'll be honest, I was only had a kind of quick look at this on there. I'm hoping that there's a build session that drills into this a bit more, but I thought that was very, very interesting, for especially for global. I think for I've worked in Asia for many years, a while back, and where you have lots of different regional offices, controlling where the central place is really important. So that really,
that's quite an interesting idea, to be able to move the work. So when you're talking about moving the workloads, you're not talking about the sovereignty and the geolocation for users. You're talking about actually being able to move what workloads.
I'm getting
or am I asking for questions that are too deep
here? I'll be honest, you're asking the questions that are too deep, and I want to look into more. But certainly to be able to see that load across different areas, and knowing where you have offices that aren't getting the performance you want. We had a big problem at a previous company when rolling out to Australia, and just SharePoint Online was far too slow to do anything with, because it was connecting to the UK based one. So I'm assuming that it's about geolocation and bringing things across, but I may be wrong there.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because certainly I remember many years ago working with a client who had a lot of users in Africa, and moving online really fixed a lot of the performance challenges they had, because they were then just using, you know, the local breakout into the internet, rather than that channeling everything into one data center. And I think with Microsoft, you know, the way they've always talked about it is, you know, get to the Azure front door as fast as you can do.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't matter where anything is in the world, you'll get there pretty damn quickly.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting to see that network, because whether that's just to be able to target, you know, breakout from particular offices, or route into data centers, and, you know, data hygiene, network hygiene, and challenges like that as well.
So certainly what it looks like is fantastic. You always know with these things that the detail may not be quite as exciting, but definitely worth further exploring.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
The other bits from that keynote that I kind of took out as interesting, that the Teams audio filter. So where that they've put in Streamer, which I think is pretty sure is now available, is rolled out, where it will kind of cut out a lot of that background noise automatically. By you can turn that on within Stream, and it will process that and reduce some of the noise reduction on there. And I think Gary was talking about, was it CRISPR.ai that he's tried? And he was sitting in a garage having his car serviced, and there was telly on the background and people chatting, and then he turned on CRISPR and he just went gone. You couldn't hear it at all. So that's quite impressive. And I think the aim is to bring something similar to that to Teams. And they gave a demo within the keynote of eating popcorn. And I was like, that sounds great. You can sit there in a meeting and carry on eating without that noise coming through. That I'm all over that, definitely.
Yeah, that will make quite a difference, especially in the summer. You know, I've sat here with a window open.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I've got a colleague who has, I don't know what goes down his road, but it sounds like he has lorries going down his road every time we're speaking. So that will make a significant difference for people, I think.
Yeah. So well, and the other one, we talked about lists just now, but Omar Shaheen gave a lovely demo of some of the lists as part of that keynote. And it's interesting for those on the video can see that issue tracker, i.e. tasks, was one of the things on there that showed up, and I thought was very nice, and showed the different views. What really grabbed my attention was the, I keep forgetting the name of it. Shouldn't do this on Sunday mornings when I've had late night quizzing, but this view that's showing up now, the kind of gallery view, and being able to customize that. So that's something that hasn't been in SharePoint lists, very much something new, that you can select where the images go, you can select which properties you want to show there. And I'm a big fan of those. I'm not a massive fan of lists, because I find, yes, you can put the different colors on there, but things don't jump out. You can't see across a list quite so easily, whereas I find the gallery view things stand out. So well worth a look at what Shaheen was sharing there. I thought it was very good to see, and kind of made me want to go and see the rest of the build session on their lists to find out more.
Yeah, I think lists, that'll be the big one for the summer, won't it? Playing with lists and trying to work out exactly how far we can push them.
Have you looked into them much, Stephan? Or
I just watched the video, and I followed Omar's Twitter feed, because he actually explained how he uses it for his day-to-day job, for managing his team. He has certain lists for giving recognition to certain team members and stuff like that. So he actually explained how he uses he uses the service quite a long time ago now, and that gave me like an idea, okay, how to use it apart from doing tasks with those kind of things.
Yeah, no, that'd be very good.
Yeah.
So the Microsoft 365 Marathon again was great. I think they're just starting to publish their videos up into the YouTube channel. So certainly the one I just shared there, Jeff Teber's keynotes, up and available there, and we'll have links in the show notes. But the other videos are going there. As mentioned, Sam Graber's session on project management in Teams was very good, and some great questions after that. I had a session on the etiquette of meetings in Teams, and some nice questions after that one. So hopefully that'll be published up, and we'll share links to that later. Another bit of news, and this was something I didn't see announced, but kind of stumbled upon it. It suddenly popped up in my Outlook. So I tend to use Outlook for the web primarily, and it showed up there the ability to add online meetings to all meetings by default. so that I had this, and Al knows this. I'll set up a meeting and forget to tick the Teams bit to it because it's not always there in the smaller view, and you have the meeting about to start, and you suddenly get the messages from people saying, how are we dialing in? Is it Teams? You have to quickly update it and send out there. And I'd say certainly at the moment, 99% of my meetings will be via Teams and remote ones. So to have that as default, I thought was brilliant. So if you go into settings and you Outlook for the web,
99%.
yeah.
What are you doing for that? What are you doing for that other 1% for meetings?
That's the 1% where I have to do some work and I book out time for myself. So
oh right, okay.
My focus time, which is down to about 1%, I think, at the moment. But yeah, as I say, the vast majority of meetings are in Teams. And I have to book in time for my wife to make a cup of tea as well. So
obviously, yeah.
That's me making.
You've got to have your priorities there, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, if you go into settings and look under calendar, events and invitations, that's on the web. And I think, Al, you asked me yesterday, what about Outlook for the desktop? I'll be honest, got no idea because I haven't used that in a long time. So be interested to see if that option's there.
Yeah, interestingly, I don't have that option show up still. So
no, me neither.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So maybe that's why they haven't announced that. They've just released it to some clients bit by bit. But again, Al and I were on the same tenants, so
yeah,
that's something you haven't got either, Stephan.
No, I've checked it, but I haven't got it.
So yeah, that'll be something for you to investigate and come back to us in the next show and tell us why we don't have it, Kevin.
Probably because you're not stupid enough to forget to put Teams meetings. Maybe they're talented idiots like me who don't remember to do it.
That's the AI behind the scenes,
I was
right?
going to say, it's the AI.
It'd be lovely if it was. Yeah.
We've identified a pattern and we're going to remedy it for him.
Yeah.
Other news, and this is my Gary news of the dev blog. A really good post by Joel Rodriguez, someone Al and I both know, SharePoint MVP, talking about using WSL2. And I'm trying to remember what WSL is, Windows subsystem for Linux. So it's basically running Linux on your Windows machine. They've got the updated version for that. And he's got posts about doing SharePoint framework development on there. Which many people look at and go, well, that's just showing off. There's not really much point. But the performance of building and compiling those is hugely better than Windows. So I think this is a really good step, and also gives you that ability to have different versions of SharePoint framework. I know I've used Node Version Manager to swap around on different things, but this is definitely something I'm going to take a look at. Give it a try.
I just looked at that and thought, Windows 2004. I've never heard of that version. It took a second to tweet that it was actually April's update, isn't it? But yeah,
that's a good spot actually. Yeah, it's the latest one. We're going retro.
Yeah, we're going retro. It's going to take us back 20 years into the interface.
Because Stephan, you do SharePoint framework development, obviously as part of the bots, don't you? And
yeah, from time to time, yeah, of course.
Okay,
not too much from time to time.
Yeah, it'd be interesting though, because one of the problems I have of doing SharePoint, we've been doing a project recently where we got an SPFX and embedding a bot within it, and having to flip between the different node versions to do the SPFX, which only supports 10, and then the bot, we want to be on the latest one, and just remembering which one you had. The amount of time I've wasted trying to work out why things don't compile, and then realizing I haven't flipped over again.
Yeah.
So it'd be really interesting to sort of use the WSL2. I've done a bit of Docker. I've had issues with just it overloading my machine a little bit. So I'd be interested to see if this works nicely. Final bit of news before we get on to bots. I kind of noted, I think it was in the Collab Talk, and was chatting to a few people recently that kind of chat that people had about bots being overhyped and killing everyone's jobs off and things like that was finally dying down a bit. And then this morning I read that Microsoft sacked journalists to replace them with robots. So we will be talking about the positive side of bots in a minute, but apparently Microsoft has replaced about 27 staff who actually sat within Press Association, who go and create news articles for MSN. Now they're doing it with bots because they found the AI is more efficient and can work better. So it is a reminder that the stuff we do can affect real people as well. So for me, I think bots help people and make things more efficient alongside what people do. It can help make people more productive. It's a positive side of things, but it's a good reminder to all of us that actually there's negative sides to it as well. So making sure you consider what you're doing and what the impacts to people are.
I think that's it, isn't it? It's productivity improvements. If you're doing the same thing day in, day out, then there is an opportunity for a job to be taken away from you there. But if you're actually adding that human element, it's a long way from now before bots will take over all of that.
Yes.
And as the MVP in the sort of AI space, I know Microsoft's particularly good at the ethics side and a lot of discussions around AI. You must have to give talks, Stephan, around the ethics and the impact of bots.
Yeah, definitely. So they're actually trying to put, like, it's not exactly like a governance framework around it, but they're tending to actually educate people on how to use those services in a responsible way. And actually, I once saw a slide, it was already a couple of years ago, where a guy showed an org chart, typical org chart with a lot of people in there. And he actually talked about how it should not be in the future, where the org chart just had the board on the top and then just bots sitting on as team members, replacing all the team members.
It's a terrifying thought.
Yeah, that's the thing, how we should not do it, actually. And Microsoft does a pretty good job on doing all the ethics stuff and stuff around how to use it reasonably and not replace humans, because that's not the goal. That shouldn't be the goal at all.
Yeah. Well, I thought so until I saw that article, but no, absolutely.
Yeah, maybe they changed their mind.
Yeah. And so I think that's a good time to wrap up the first part of the show, unless anyone's got any other news they wanted to share. Great.
No, let's get on with the robots.
Absolutely. So having talked about the negative side, I think we'll wrap up the recording here and come back in part 2 where we talk about Here Come the Robots. Thanks very much.